Hello, and today we're going to be reviewing the Hypertough aq75072g 8-volt 3/8-inch cordless drill. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, starting off at the base of the tool, we have the batteries. Now, the batteries are non-replaceable by the user, but if you do technically have the know-how as well as a spot welder, you can do it. This tool is powered by two 18650 batteries, which is a fairly standard battery and definitely provide 8 volts worth of power and seem to be of a high quality, although I was not able to tell what brand they are. But considering this drill came from a brick and mortar store and it's a store brand, I'm going to say they're going to be of a decent quality at least. With that being said, let's move on. And moving upward, we have a, well, spare bit holder. The holder is going to be very useful for when you need to switch in between two different kinds of bits, and is going to be located on the rear of the tool, which will help prevent you from damaging a work surface. I really do enjoy having this particular feature, and it's a feature that I wish more brands would incorporate onto their tools. But until then, I'll just have to be happy with the Hypertough and Hart brands. Now, the included drill bit that's in the bit holder when you get it is a little bit on the short side, and I would recommend using a longer bit in the future, but other than that, I don't have any issues with this bit holder, and it passes with flying colors. Moving on. Okay, next up we have an LED light, which is actually rather surprising considering the price point of this particular drill. Now, the light will become activated when you pull the trigger, and as soon as you release the trigger, the light will turn off, and will provide enough illumination to the area directly in front of the drill that you'll be able to see what you're working on, although it is very dim and is no replacement for an actual work light. But like I said earlier, considering the price point of the drill, it is a nice feature, and it's one that I'm glad they decided to include. And quite frankly, I think it's actually brighter than one of the LEDs on one of my new Ryobi drills, which is rather disappointing for Ryobi, but is a good thing for this particular drill. So overall, I'm very happy with the light on this drill, and it passes with flying colors. Okay, next up we have the charge indicator light. This is actually another nice feature, and they didn't skimp out on it either. When the light is red, that means the drill is charging, and when it's full, the light will turn green. I'm really appreciative that they decided to include a green light as well as the red light, because I don't really particularly like the lights that just turn off when it's done charging. It always makes me wonder if there's something wrong with the tool. So the fact that the light turns green is another nice feature on this particular tool, and something that I enjoy having. Moving on. And next up we have the charging port. The charging port is a barrel style charging port, which is fairly common on these lightweight rechargeable tools. I personally would have liked to have seen a USB-C style charging port, but the barrel plug definitely feels well constructed on this particular tool, so I don't really have any major complaints. It's just more of a personal preference. So with that being said, let's move on. And next up we have the grip. Now, the grip on this particular tool is actually very nice considering the price point, and even not considering the price point. Quite frankly, I've had more expensive tools that have had worse grips, so I'm actually even more impressed by just how well this particular drill is holding up considering the price point. Now, the grip itself is going to be more comfortable for people with smaller to medium-sized hands. If you have larger-sized hands or are wearing large gloves, that might be a little bit tricky for you, but not impossible. I personally do like the rubberized texture they went with. It's definitely a little bit more on the firmer side, but it's still comfortable enough, and definitely the pattern that they have molded into the rubberized texture is very comfortable and definitely helps you have a firm grasp on the tool and will prevent you from accidentally dropping it. So I have no complaints, and it passes with flying colors. And next up, we have the trigger. Now, the trigger on this particular drill is made out of a red plastic and has a very nice smooth pull with no stickiness or gumminess. There is plenty of definition in between the different speeds, and there are plenty of speeds at the low end and at the high end. So, at the end of the day, this is a very nice trigger, and quite frankly, I wish there were some other brands that are more expensive that would take as much time as Hypertough apparently took on this particular drill's trigger. So, it passes with another flying color. Overall, this is shaping up to be a very impressive little drill, but we'll have to see if it holds out or if there's some ugly surprises. Moving on. And next up we have the safety / forward / reverse selector switch. Overall, this is a very standard design. Your left side is going to be your forward, your right side is going to be your reverse, and the middle is going to be your safety position. It's a little bit on the stiff side, but at the end of the day, this is probably a good thing to, well, keep you from accidentally, well, putting into a different position. So yeah, nothing else to say here. It's perfectly adequate and it gets the job done. Moving on. And next up we have the clutch. Now the clutch is actually fairly decent on this particular drill. It has 21 different positions to choose from for your torque settings, as well as the additional position for drilling, which gives you a grand total of 22 positions. The clutch itself is made out of plastic and is a little bit on the stiff side, but at the end of the day it's still better to have it on the stiff side than on the loose side. Now the only thing about the clutch I would say probably could use some improvement would be the fact that, well, the arrow that indicates what position you're currently at is a little bit hard to tell. It's at the very top of the tool, and as long as you remember that, you're not going to have any issues. So as far as I'm concerned, the clutch passes with flying colors, and I would definitely say this is the way to go over an electric 4-bolt screwdriver, which almost never feature any sort of a clutch mechanism, which means that you're more likely to damage something. So yeah, this is the way to go. As far as I'm concerned, it passes with flying colors. And next up we have the chuck. Now the chuck on this particular drill actually really reminds me of a Black & Decker drill I reviewed not long ago. Huh, weird. But at the end of the day, they both suffer from the same kind of a weakness, and that would be it's somewhat hard to tighten the chuck or loosen the chuck if you have large-sized hands. If you have medium to small-sized hands, it's easier, but I personally would have liked to have seen the area you grip in order to loosen the chuck be extended a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier. But it still has metal internals, and the outside is plastic, which I actually prefer. So as far as I'm concerned, it still gets the job done, and I haven't had any issues with it dropping drilling or driving bits. So yeah, it gets a pass from me, and it's completely usable. Moving on. Okay, this little drill weighs 591 grams, which is about 1.3 pounds, so it's a pretty lightweight drill. Okay, let's talk about this drill in use. Overall, this drill in use is definitely, well, it's definitely in a sweet spot as far as I'm concerned. I don't really like 4-volt screwdrivers, and 12-volt drills, they just have a little bit too much power. As far as I'm concerned, if your job application is to disassemble power tools, electronics, lights, this is going to be a decent tool to consider. You're going to have 8 volts of power, which is double the amount a typical 4-volt screwdriver has. Not to mention you're going to have a clutch, which you typically only find on more expensive drills or more expensive electric screwdrivers. And with the 8 volts of power, it's definitely going to be a decent option for disassembly and assembly of items. Now, I am disappointed that it doesn't have a removable battery, but I actually haven't hit the end of the battery life on any of the jobs I've been using it with. So it's still completely usable, but like I said earlier, a changeable battery would be a nice option to have. Now, in use, it's a very lightweight drill, and you don't really have any fatigue, or at least I didn't have any fatigue while using it. And so I think that's another nice benefit of this particular drill. It's definitely going to be easier to work on delicate or fragile items. And so if you're going to be refurbishing or repairing electronics, this is a good little drill to take a look at, and it won't break the bank, which is another benefit of this drill. Coming in at around $13 or $14 when it's not on sale, this is a very affordable option for, well, the vast majority of people who are on a tight budget. And, well, quite frankly, it's a great quality tool for that price. The build quality on this tool is fantastic. I've had more expensive tools that have lesser build quality, and so at the end of the day, I really think you're getting quite a bit of tool here for the price. Now, this is definitely not going to be competing against a 12-volt drill or an 18-volt drill, so if you're planning on building a shed, redoing your deck, or finishing your basement, you're going to be needing to look at something a little bit more powerful. But for your light around-the-house jobs, this is definitely going to be able to accomplish those tasks. And considering the amount of features that were included on this particular drill, it really is an excellent bargain for the price. And the only real change I would make would probably be to swap out the barrel charger port for a USB-C style charging port. USB-C is definitely becoming an industry standard, and it would be very nice to have on this particular tool. It means that you'd have less chargers to have to dig through, and if you're on the go, you'll be able to, well, plug into your friend's USB-C charger and charge the drill up if you forgot your own charger or misplaced it. Not to mention that chargers do stop working, and if you have a universal charger, it's much easier to deal with that sort of a problem. But with that being said, let's go through the pros and cons. 8 volt. It's just the right amount of power that you need for a lot of different applications. 4 volts too little, 12 volts too much, 8 volts just right. And this is a pro in my opinion. Clutch. Having a clutch on a lightweight power tool just makes sense. There's a lot of applications where you're dealing with delicate fasteners, and even 4 volts sometimes is too much power. So in my opinion, having the clutch on this tool is a pro. Well built. Overall, this is a very well built tool, and there's a lot of manufacturers that build tools that are far more expensive than this one that have worse build quality. So as far as I'm concerned, the build quality is definitely a high quality called a pro in my opinion. Bit holder. Overall, the bit holder is definitely a useful feature and will keep you from looking for that bit in your pocket or on that cluttered work surface. So as far as I'm concerned, the bit holder is a pro. And this also proves that you can still put a bit holder on and keep the tool affordable. I'm looking at you, Ryobi. So with that being said, let's move on to the next pro. Wait, this is a very lightweight drill, and this is going to be useful for, well, if you're older, if you have to carry the tool for a long period of time, or if you just hate hauling around heavy tools. So yeah, this is a pro in my opinion. Price. Overall, this is a very affordable drill, coming in at $13, and considering the build quality, not to mention the features that this drill has, I would definitely say this drill is well worth that price, and not to mention that it's definitely going to provide you more power than a 4-volt screwdriver for around the same price. Moving on. I'm super excited about the LED. Best feature ever. Nah, I'm just joking, but it is nice having an LED and it will come in handy, and considering the price point, I wasn't expecting it, so this is a pro in my opinion. And the first con would be barrel plug. The barrel plug isn't really a bad option, but there is a better option. That would have been a USB charging port. It's far easier to find a USB-C charging port than a barrel plug nowadays, and if you're on the go, this would be a very handy option to have. So yeah. Moving on. No belt clip. Yeah, I really would have liked to have been able to attach a belt clip or at least a lanyard. There's nowhere you can attach a lanyard or belt clip, so in my opinion, this is a con. Non-removable battery. Yeah, that's kind of par for the course with a rechargeable tool like this, but it would have been nice to be able to swap the battery out. I'm just saying that there's a lot of situations where swapping the battery out would have been very useful. But I digress. And that is it for the pros and cons. Final thoughts on this particular tool. You know, I really wasn't expecting that much when I threw it in my cart at Walmart, and when I got home I was pleasantly surprised. It had multiple features I wasn't expecting, such as the bit holder, the light, and well, quite frankly, it was also more powerful and had a better build quality than what I was expecting. HyperTough definitely delivered on this particular tool, and I may be taking a look at some of the other tools in the future if this tool is anything to go by. So at the end of the day, this tool definitely comes highly recommended from me, and as long as you're not building a shed or redoing your basement, I think you're going to be fairly happy with this particular drill. Like I said earlier, its niche is definitely going to be in the assembly and disassembly of electronics or power tools, and it does a great job. So yeah, this tool comes recommended. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. God bless.